What's up, guys and gals? It's the Tyrant here. It's your boy here. Sorry, I had to do that at least once. And welcome back to my weekly Q&As where you guys ask the questions and I give you the answers. It's always my favorite time of the week. You guys are always such a great crowd and I love taking your questions. Before we jump into it, I know some of you are probably thinking there was a lack of Halo content this week, and you're not crazy by thinking that. I purposely held off because I wanted to promote my new series, Dino Fights, which, if you haven't already checked it out yet, the premise is, well, who would have thought? Dinosaurs. And so, dinosaurs is my first love. I've, been a huge fan of dinosaurs since I was a kid. And each episode is basically split between teaching you about a new dinosaur and also showing you how to play or give you tips on how to play Jurassic World, the game. So if you're a fan of dinosaurs, I hope you check it out. The people who've checked it out so far really seem to love it. And I'd love to have you involved in those discussions as well. So check it out. We've got 6 episodes up. This past week I had sort of a marathon because there was a Titanoboa tournament, which is the largest snake that ever existed, over almost 50 feet long. And there was a tournament for him in the game, so I spent a lot of time actually working to get the Titanoboa, and I ended up getting first place in the world for that tournament. 3rd time I've gotten that. So please check out the series. I hope you like it. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into the Q&As. For those of you who don't know how this works, it's pretty simple. You can submit a question to me one of 3 ways. The first way is in the comment section below. The second way, is on my Twitter feed, which you can hit me up at MythicTyrant. There's a link in my description if you want to click directly. And the third way is if you're a premium member of the site, meaning that you donate to my Patreon page for as little as $1 a month and you have access to our premium Discord, you can ask me through there as well. And so I usually pick about 10 questions every week, give or take. I picked 12 this week. You had a lot of good ones. If I don't get to yours, I apologize. Just go ahead and either put it in this week's comment section or hit me up on Twitter. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Our first question of the week comes from MudKip454. Always good to hear from you, Mud. And he asks, Q&A, how does the comic book series Halo Uprising fit into the lore? Google says it picks up from the conclusion of Halo 2, but that makes no sense, with Chief being on the Dreadnought at the end of Halo 2. But the comic doesn't show Chief on the Dreadnought. Yeah, it actually does, Mudkip. So it's for those of you who aren't familiar with it, I'm sorry I'm going to spoil it for you, but the series is over 10 years old at this point. So, yeah. Anyway, the series, it's a comic series. I think Bungie worked with Marvel on this one, if I'm not mistaken. And it was supposed to basically showcase the events between Halo 2 and Halo 3. Unfortunately, with that series, only the first comic, the first of the 4, came out between the 2 games. And it basically had 2 settings to it. One was following the Master Chief, the other was showcasing the events on Earth, and for some odd reason, the Covenant decided to attack Cleveland, Ohio. But anyway, for the Chief side, it actually did talk about him on the ship. In fact, that was the premise of Chief's side, is, so he's going through the ship, he's trying to hunt for truth. Eventually, the Covenant catch up to him, they interrogate him, Chief manages to get free, and then he manages to pursue Truth. He almost gets him, and then Truth gets away, and the Covenant, start chase with Chief, and then Chief grabs that slab of the ship and then leaves the Dreadnought and plummets to Earth, and that's where it picks up. So I'm not sure if you're reading the same comics I am, but yeah, it is in there. But still, I'm glad that you asked that, because anyone who hasn't heard of Halo Uprising and would like to read it, definitely check it out. Our next question comes from Dale Lee Mixon, and Dale asks, Q&A, what is your favorite Halo multiplayer map of all time? Easy. That's Avalanche for Halo 3. Prior to that, it was Sidewinder for Halo Combat Evolved. I love how big the map is. I love the fact that it's covered in snow and ice. And Avalanche it was a reimagining of Sidewinder, and it added so much more to it and so much awe. And I loved playing that map. I was a little bit distraught when I saw Halo Online or Halo 3 PC or whatever you want to call it, and they redid it and called it Diamondback, and it took place in the desert, and I'm like, no, No, you bring the winter theme back, damn it. So I'm really hoping to see that map return in maybe Halo 6. That would be awesome, and yeah, that's my favorite map, so good question, Dale, thank you. Our next question comes from Luke Skywalker II, and Luke asks, excellent video, Tyrant. I hope these heretics at the FCC never succeed, for I hope that our Revolution will prevail. That's an interesting start to a question. But anyway, he continues. But anyway, for the next Q&A, how would you feel if Halo 6 had a Return of the Jedi type ending with Cortana redeeming herself, but just like Vader, dies in the process, and the created being defeated at a huge final stand on Earth or even the Ark? Gee, I can't imagine a guy named Luke Skywalker being into Star Wars. I'm just kidding, but that would be funny, though. Chief, for once, let me see with my own eyes. Sorry. It's not that far-fetched. I could certainly see that being a possible outcome. I don't know what Cortana is at the end of Halo 5. I don't know if she's being influenced by the Didact or the Logic Plague, or if she's just, had a really bad day. But whatever the case may be, I could see that being a possibility. I don't really think it would go in that direction. I have some more theories on that. But yeah, it's an interesting concept for sure. So thanks for sharing it, Luke Skywalker. I appreciate it. Our next question comes from Claude Assassin. And actually, this is a two-part deal because two people asked a very similar question here, so I'm going to address them differently. And Claude Assassin asks, how would you work out the Prometheans? I mean, implement them like, I don't know, quote, or parentheses, insert your thoughts here, with respect. So, because I have a similar question that follows this one, since it wasn't really clarified what he means, I'm going to take this as a lore thing and save the gameplay for the next question. So in terms of lore, there's still a lot that I would like explored with the Prometheans. We know about the Promethean Knights. We know that they were ancient humans. But I would like to also find out about the soldiers too, because I'm not exactly sure what they are. They have sort of a orangey glow like the knights do, but at the same time, they're not knights. So I don't know if they're more like automatons, like the crawlers and the watchers, or if they're closer to the knights. So I'd like to learn about that, how they continuously are generated, because they got to run out sometime, right? So I don't know if they're taking additional humans somehow, because the composer isn't in Halo 5 Guardians, so I'm not really sure what they're doing with that. But I'd like to find out more about their origins and how they're processed in present day time. So I know that might not be exactly your question, but the next one might answer it. And our next question comes from Declarin Jam. Okay, I'm sorry, I was reading that wrong. So it's Declarin Jam. And Declarin Jam asks, Q&A, Claude Assassin suggested to me to submit this to Q&A. The Prometheans are interesting to me. However, I believe the improvements on them still lack. If we are to still keep them, this is how I'd like to do it. I had these thoughts for a few months now. He goes into a few different things, but I figured I would actually address how I would like to see them improved. And really, the two biggest things that bug me about the Prometheans currently are the fact that they can magically warp in from anywhere, so there's no introduction for them, they just appear. And the second is that the soldiers sort of have their phasing thing where they jump around, and that bugs the hell out of me too. What I would like to see in the future is some sort of dropship, some sort of Promethean dropship, bring them in. I've heard some people suggest maybe the dropship could break apart and form Prometheans. That's a very creative idea, and that maybe you could shoot off pieces of the ship before it reaches you, so that the waves of Prometheans that hit you is far fewer. I think that there's definitely something there. I want them to seem less magical and more practical. So that would be my main thing. In terms of anything else, I could still see maybe a Promethean boss type unit, not necessarily the Warden Eternal, but a unit that would be still stronger than the Knights, but not quite boss material. So I'd like to see an expansion of the Prometheans and definitely fine-tune the way they actually interact with the player and how they enter the battle. So I hope that answers everyone's questions. Great questions on both of you. Thank you. Our next question comes from Devin Hart. And Devin asks, if Halo 6 has Halo 5 movement style and 343 decides to bring back dual wielding, would that be good, bad, or a disastrous thing for Halo? So I have a pretty unpopular opinion when it comes to the Halo 5 movement system. I actually enjoy it. I think it's great to have in there, especially with the campaign. You've got more enemies, you've got larger maps to traverse, and I personally love having it there. I think most of the controversy tends to revolve around multiplayer. And to fix that, what I would suggest is basically what they're doing now, but not so late, where you have classic playlists where that would feature classic movement systems and classic mechanics versus having a standard playlist where it has the current movement system. I hope that the current Halo 5 movement system transfers over to Halo 6. I think it was very well done. A vast improvement over armor abilities from Halo 4 and Halo Reach. But to satisfy those who still aren't happy with them, they missed the classic Halo but don't want to play the classic Halo for whatever reason, still have a classic playlist for them. In terms of dual wielding, I never really understood why people were so against it. I really don't think they were. I think that was a facade. I think some people were against it because it created balancing issues in multiplayer, even though I really don't believe it was that severe. I think Halo 3 probably had the best multiplayer I've ever played, and that had dual wielding in it. I think a fix for that, again, could be a separate playlist or just include dual wielding in campaign. But either way, I would love to see it return, and I think a lot of classic Halo fans would enjoy seeing it too. So that's a great question, Devin. Thank you. Our next question comes from Puneet Kumar. Always good to hear from you, Puneet. And he asks, hey, Tyrant, for the next Q&A, whether we talk about Halo 4 or 5, one thing it's surely lacking is music. We all know music is one of the most important parts of Halo, or of the Halo series. Halo 4 and 5 music is less than average if we compare it to Marty O'Donnell's legendary score. What are your thoughts on this? So, I think there's one thing we can all agree on. Marty O'Donnell cannot be beat. I mean, his music is legendary, and I own most of the Halo soundtracks, or at least from the original series of games. And really, of all of them, there's only one track of Marty O'Donnell's that I didn't like, and it came from the Arbiter's missions in Halo 2, more specifically the Arbiter and Oracle. And I can't really duplicate it, but it was something like, I know that's a terrible that's a terrible comparison or a terrible try at imitating it, but I think you probably from that know what I mean. It's sort of just a weird high and low type spooky sounding singing voice. It was really, it didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard in Halo before or heard since then. Even my wife, when she heard it, was like, "What is this?" I was like, "I don't know. It's the low point of the game. Trust me." But in terms of everything else, Marty O'Donnell's score has always blown me out of the water. And it's always, his music is very memorable. I still remember the original Halo Combat Evolved score. The songs still stick with me today. Here's the thing, though. I actually enjoy the score from Halo 4 and 5. It's different. So when I think of when I think of Marty O'Donnell's material, I think of it as material that can stick with you. It may not necessarily always match what's going on the screen. Actually, he does that pretty well in terms of matching it. But the differences between the two is that Marty O'Donnell is really great at composing very memorable, very immersive tunes that stick with you, whereas Halo 4 and 5 feel more theatrical. Basically, what I'm saying here is, I love Halo 4 and 5's music, but for different reasons. There are tons of songs that I love from Halo 4. One of them is the theme for this site. Especially, you look at the mission Midnight and how epic the music feels when you're driving that longsword fighter. And then later on, when you're going up against the Didact, the song Immortal, or I think that's what it's called, Immortal plays, and it's got this nice beat to it. And then, so fast forward to Halo 5. I love the song Worldquake. You hear it a few times throughout the campaign, but it's usually in a very urgent situation. I love the music of what they call Sentinel Song, which plays a couple of times, but it's very epic sounding. So yeah, they do have really good music in 4 and 5. It may not stick with you all the time as much as it did when Marty O'Donnell was in charge, but I think it fits the gameplay perfectly. So to answer your question, yeah, I miss Marty O'Donnell. I'd love to see 343 bring him on, especially since he's not working for Bungie anymore, but I believe he has his own company now. And if we can't have Marty O'Donnell, I'm still really happy with the people currently composing the Halo music. So that's my take on it. Still, I think Marty O'Donnell tops everything, but 4 and 5 are doing pretty damn well too. So great question, Paddy. Thank you. Our next question comes from the Storyteller channel. Always good to hear from you, Storyteller. And Storyteller asks, Halo Q&A, what do you think that 343 Industries will do once the Halo franchise has finally met its end? Would they continue to make games, or would they just stop altogether? By the way, my favorite dinosaur is the Utah Raptor. Ooh, hats off to you, Storyteller. That's actually my second favorite dinosaur, and my all-time favorite raptor. Largest raptor to have ever existed that we know of at this time. So to answer your question, no, I think after Halo is done and they're not making any more Halo games, 343 will most likely dissolve. You know, it's not the first time we've seen it. After Halo Wars was released, Ensemble Studios dissolved, but I don't think the people at 343 would necessarily lose their jobs because 343 Industries was created to create Halo content, and it's right there in the title, 343. My thoughts on that is more than likely they would break up 343 and different aspects of it would be absorbed into different sections of Microsoft Studios. So I think all those people would probably be shuffled around a little bit to work on other products, but I don't see 343 working on stuff outside of Halo content because that's not their brand. But I don't see them out on the street either. You have a lot of talent working at 343 Industries, and I'm pretty sure Microsoft would have a place for every one of them. So that's a great question, Storyteller. Thank you. Our next question comes from Landon Scott. Any relation to Michael Scott by any chance? That's what she said. Okay, question. So what would happen if the Halo 6 campaign manages to bring back let me rephrase that. Q&A, what would happen if Halo 6 manages to bring back not only old fans but also a lot more new fans to the series? Would it make the Halo series last longer than 30 years? Because that's what Microsoft is claiming is how long the series will last. Okay. First thoughts on that. If Halo 6 is a hit, then I may not have to worry about my channel going under. But in terms of it bringing back old and new fans, it's possible. I think that even old fans that may have left the series during 4 or 5 are going to at least want to check it out. Especially if they played Halo 5 Guardians, they're obviously going to want to see the resolution and see how that plays out, and I'm sure they want to take part in it just rather than simply watching a video on it. That's just my personal opinion. Do I think it's going to be as big as maybe Halo 3 was? I doubt it. But I can see bringing in new people alike if they really do manage to hit it on all ends, including campaign and multiplayer, firefight, Forge, and all that good stuff. And I think that all that's going to be necessary. In terms of the 30-year mark, I still say that's a long ways away. I mean, at that point, we're talking about Halo being around for almost 50 years. I'm having trouble picturing where my channel's going to be in 30 years if it's even still going to be around. But that's a good question. I think that if they hit all the right marks on Halo 6, it can definitely bring some much-needed revival to the work that's being done at 343. I think it'll restore a lot of faith in 343, and so I wish them the best. Remember, when you're criticizing past games, don't just shout and scream insults. Make constructively critical comments that they can actually work from. So that's my answer to that, and a great question, Landon Scott. Tell Michael I said hi. Our next question comes from my man Arc48, and Arc48 asks, if you could rewrite Halo 5 story while keeping the marketing campaign, Locke Chief goes rogue, etc., what would this be? So he actually asked a really on-the-nose question. I have good news and bad news for you. The bad news is I'm not going to answer it in full, but the good news is why, and that's because I'd already actually planned on doing a video about this. I'm not sure if it's going to be this Monday or next Monday. I'm working on currently about 3 different Halo videos, idea videos, and so I'm not sure the order that I'm going to release them, but they're all going to be Monday releases. But I'll give you sort of a hint here. I'll give you sort of an overview. I think the biggest thing, first of all, in terms of the marketing campaign, I didn't agree with where they were going with that. I know some people felt differently about it, but I just can't see a Spartan versus Spartan game working out too well, especially when the whole franchise is marketed around you going up against aliens from outer space. So to that end, I would scrap the marketing campaign and the current story mode, and I would say that Halo 5 Guardians should have been divided into 2 games, Halo 5 and Halo 5 Guardians. Halo 5 Guardians being the expansion, similar to Halo 3 ODST. Halo 5 Guardians would focus around the Chief, meeting back up with Blue Team, dealing with the threat that is Jul 'Mdama, and then Halo 5 Guardians would focus on Team Osiris, or Fire Team Osiris, getting to know them a little bit better, getting to understand the Guardian situation, and then having, at the end of Halo 5 Guardians, sort of a merging of the 2 plot lines. So that's basically all I'm going to give you for now, but I'll go into more detail about it in my next video. So great question, Arc48. It's always good to hear from you, man. Our next question comes from DB2Guide, and DB asks, Tyrant Q&A, how would you feel if 343 killed off the Chief in Halo 6 and then brought Locke's legacy up at the end? So this is a great question. I've actually touched on this before. I made a video earlier this year saying that Master Chief will probably die in Halo 6. It got some backlash for sure, and I understand why. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit more at the end of the video. First of all, I do agree that the Chief should exit the series in Halo 6, or at least in terms of into games that take place after Halo 6. If there are going to be games that take place after Halo 6, I need to see Chief have a satisfying end. Now, to bring up to the second half of your question, should Locke replace him? No. Oh my gosh, no. Locke is already not really a well-accepted character, and it's not, you know, what's the best way to put this? The only reason I feel like people don't like Locke is because he wasn't fleshed out very well. We don't know much about him. He seems very stone-like. You know, why is he important to the series, sort of thing? I feel like if they had fleshed that out early on, we'd feel differently about him, or at least shown us through his actions why he's so important, rather than instantly pairing him up with 3 other people so that anything they accomplish is technically a joint accomplishment. So in terms of Locke himself, I don't see people really getting too attached to him, and more so, I definitely don't see them looking at Locke as a replacement for the Master Chief. So that's my thought on that one, DB2, but thank you, that's a good question. And our final question of the week, our star question, comes from my boy CFunk99. Man, CFunk, you are nailing these questions. This is the second time in a row, I believe, that you've been the star Q&A. And he asks, hey Tyrant, here's my question for this week's Q&A. If Master Chief becomes digitized to try and save Cortana, would it be cool to fight digitized Didact as a boss? So I'll tackle the first part of this question. Before I get too far into it, one of my theories of how Master Chief could exit the series is that he wouldn't technically die, but perhaps be composed in some way, shape, or form, so it becomes digitized. So his existence is still there. It's just he's not the same Master Chief that we know, if that makes any sense. And that, you know, I propose that maybe in some way he uses that to save Cortana from whatever she's going through right now. Now, I'll address the Didact part first. For those of you who don't know this, the Didact survived after Halo 4. He was in Halo Escalation. He decimated a team of Spartans. Then Blue Team caught up with him, and eventually the Didact got composed. Now, what everyone's saying is that the Forerunners didn't know how to bring people back from composition. They all became Promethean Knights, and so their process failed. And I have an interesting theory, again, this is for another video, that somehow in Halo 6, they're going to find the way, the actual process for bringing objects back or digitized essences back from that realm and make them carbon-based again. I believe that's at least paving the way for the AI becoming the new major factors in the Halo universe, that they're going to be able to figure it out. So to that end, to answer the last part of the question, do I think that in the digital realm should we fight Didact as a boss? No, I think that's a little too out there. And even for the way Halo is now, I think it would just be really weird, really trippy. And to be honest with you, I don't even know how you would fight the Didact as a boss anyway. I mean, he's got force powers. He's too powerful for the Chief to go up against. You know, at least the Warden Eternal, you know, he's strong, but he's got weaknesses. With the Didact, we never really saw that except for shoving a grenade in his chest, and, you know, even that didn't kill him. So, and even then, for the digital world, I mean, how would that even work? They're not even physical forms. How can you exert pain or push pain onto something that isn't even alive or feels pain? So I guess my thought on that is I wouldn't want to see that happen. The idea is intriguing, though. And this gets me to my final point. You know, there's a lot of backlash every time it's mentioned that Chief might die in a Halo game. You know, I tried to explain this further on, that I can't see the Master Chief retiring because he's been trained as a soldier since birth. It even references in the book The Fall of Reach that when he's on a ship in ship-to-ship combat, he feels very vulnerable. He wants to be on the battlefield. He wants to be in control. I can't see the Master Chief retiring and becoming an officer who trains other Spartans or leads other Spartans in battle, or sits on his ass for the rest of his life watching my YouTube channel. I just can't see that. You know, my thoughts are, give the Master Chief a nice exit to the series, a satisfying one and a respectful one, and that will at least conclude his story. And then if they want Chief to star in other games, they can make them games that take place before the current trilogy, maybe between the first trilogy And well, that wouldn't work because he was in cryo sleep. But maybe games that took place or events that took place before the original Halo came out. So there's a lot of events there that we can certainly toy with. And people say that would be the fall of Microsoft. That would be the fall of 343 Industries. Here's the thing. For people who say that, I don't think you're really looking at this from a universal perspective. And I'm going to try to share that perspective with you today. Halo is fiction. Halo is a fictional universe, I think. Halo is a fictional universe, and it can go on as long as the creators see fit. As long as Halo is bringing in money, they can continuously make more content, whether it's in the form of books, movies, games, whatever. It can last another 200 years instead of 30 for all we know. But here's the thing. The voice actors that play those characters aren't going to be around forever. They're not going to be around for the next 200 years. And so you got to start winding things down a little bit. Steve Downes is the very talented actor who plays the Master Chief. I had the honor of meeting him a few years ago. He was kind enough to do the intro for my Halo 3 Legendary walkthrough for the mission Sierra 117. He's an awesome guy. Here's what you may not know. Steve Downes is 66 years old. Now, referencing back to earlier in the Q&A where someone said that Microsoft's planning to carry this out for 30 years, do you honestly think that Steve Downes is going to be voicing the Master Chief 30 years from now? I'll be surprised if he's doing anything 30 years from now. I'll give him a thumbs up if he is, and if I'm still around too. But at the same time, that's the thing. You have to sort of anticipate these things. I imagine with Steve Downes, at some point, he's going to want to retire and enjoy the rest of his life without being, being constantly having to work and what I mean. I know there are people out there who, work well into their twilight years, Betty White, for example, but most people don't go that route. And so what I would like to see is a satisfying close to the Master Chief story. And that way, if there's any games that ever take place past Halo 6, and I hope they don't because it's already getting a little too bizarre, but if there are ever any games that take place after Halo 6, they can have a new cast of characters. Now, to address the fact that Steve Downes may not be anywhere close to retirement, here's my rebuttal to that. I'm not saying Master Chief shouldn't be in any more Halo games. I'm saying that Master Chief should have a satisfying fate. What they can do, as I mentioned before, is make games that take place prior to the events of Halo, and that can star the Master Chief, and they can keep doing those as long as Steve Downes is willing to work. But I think having an uncertain future in that area could be kind of devastating. I mean, what would happen? I mean, let me back up a second. I think personally that people would be equally, if not more outrageous if they replaced the Master Chief voice actor. I mean, I look back at the movie Forward Unto Dawn, I loved the movie, but the one thing that stuck out to me in a negative light was the fact that Steve Downes wasn't playing the Master Chief. Now, you can defend that by saying, yeah, well, Forward Unto Dawn took place several years before the current universe, and so that was partially why, but at the same time, it still felt different. I didn't feel like I was looking at the same Spartan. And so, going forward, I would never want to see someone replace the Master Chief in terms of his voice. I would rather see a nice, even story for the Master Chief and have it go out like that. When you think about it, Steve Downes started this job when he was 50 years old. He has been playing Master Chief for the last 16 years. That is a long time. The longest voice actor for a video game that I can think of prior to this, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, was the gentleman who played Kane in the Command & Conquer series. He did that for 15 years. Now, that's not to say there aren't others out there, but in terms of prominent actors, it'd be difficult to see Steve Downes going another 10 to 20 years playing the Master Chief, when that's going to be like, think about that for a second. That's like 36 years. Most TV shows, in comparison, most hit TV shows don't usually go beyond 9 seasons. Now, there are exceptions out there, but generally speaking, most people stop around 9 or 10 seasons when their show's a hit, because actors want to move on and they want other opportunities. They don't want to be known just for one thing. Look at Seinfeld, for example, but they want other opportunities presented to them. So when you think of people playing the same role forever, think of the fact, well, the person's not going to be around forever, and even the person's going to be around for a while. They may get other opportunities. I mean, look at Luke Cage. You know, he was supposed to play Locke in Halo 5, and yeah, they modeled it after him, but it was a different voice actor completely. A talented voice actor, but it wasn't the same person because he got a better job doing a Marvel series on Netflix. So, you know, my thoughts on that is I would like to see a comforting ending for Master Chief's story while still being able to use him as a character in the series for prequel games. So I hope that brings light to the situation. Now that you see it that way, what are your thoughts? Would you like to see a very satisfying close to the Master Chief while still having the option to include him in previous or in games that take place previously? I really want to know your thoughts and opinions on this and how you personally would handle this type of situation. You can let me know in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter at MythicTyrant. A link to my Twitter feed can be found in the description below. And if you want to become a premium member of the site for as little as $1 a month, get exclusive access to the community Discord, get rewards, and just help keep this site alive throughout 2018 and beyond, check out my Patreon site now. I'm going to segue for a second and thank my buddy Chris. He is now the top donor of my Patreon site. He is working really hard to try to keep my site going, along with the other patrons there. I want to thank every one of you who's doing it so far. You're really helping me out, and it means a lot to me that my site means that much to you. I also want to thank all the folks who have been giving me rec packs for Halo 5. You guys are amazing, and thank you for that. And speaking of buying things, we also have a MythicTyrant store. My buddy Chris, he actually bought the mouse and keyboard and showed pictures of it. And Chris, if you're watching right now, if you could, post those on Twitter because I want people to see how cool looking they are. I'm glad he loves them. They look fantastic. It's not a skin. It's actually painted onto the keyboards and mice themselves. It looks really cool. And so definitely check out my MythicTyrant store. I think you're going to find a lot of things there that you like. And if you like this video and you want to see more and you want to stay up to date on all your Halo news, tips, tricks, and secrets, don't forget to click that subscribe button for more great content every single day right here on MythicTyrant.com. And of course, click that notification icon as well so you can get notified via push notifications as soon as a video comes out. You can be the first to watch and first to comment. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. I will catch you all right back here next time. And as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.